So hi everybody, Steve Katie here, and we're with our Wednesday webinar for Cohort 5. And today we have a couple things we're going to be doing. We're going to be first working with Bryce. So Bryce, again, thank you. You're a gift. I mean that in every sense of the word. We are going to learn about how to do the 360 with Bryce. We're going to learn about his role, what he's going to be doing with you all. And then second, he's going to talk with you about how to mechanically get started on your 360. And that's it for today. The third thing we need to do with Bryce is to confirm the Thursday piece and just make sure that you all are on board and want to do it. And that's the Thursday before the residency. If he's going to do a session like 5 to 8 or something, you all have asked for it. Glad to do it. He's glad to do it. We just want to make sure we have people are committed to showing up and that it's good use of his time. We will, otherwise we can do something different. We can always do an online follow-up and he might even be doing maybe we'll talk about it, Bryce. Maybe there's be an online piece and then an in-person piece because it works better and you think it's the right thing to do. Now with that, I think I'll just turn it over to you in a second. Let me just say to kick it off, because the second half of our session today, we're going to talk about the upcoming class with me, the collaborative change, and talk a little bit about program stuff. So we'll talk about program second half. So what Bryce will be doing is having you administer the 360 Leadership Circle assessment. You'll get your results. Bryce will go through and do a session with you, a one-on-one coaching session with you around that. The focus is on your professional career development with a focus on how you're going to leverage the DODC program over the next 2 years, really making sure that you think about how you're leveraging the program in service of your longer term professional goals. And that's the intention. You all will take it where you want. That's my starting point offer, right? But you all will go where you need to go with Bryce. That'll be the first thing. Second piece will be to build a cohort plan. And the PLAN will make sense to you all when we get into the next class, but it's simply a psychological contract, if you will, but it's basically a general agreement about you all, what kind of community you all want to be, learning community, an intentional plan, i.e. a document that represents the kind of learning community you want to be as Cohort 5. And that will be the other thing that he'll do with you all. Other than that, he's done with us, but we will hopefully see him more after that. Bryce, is that consistent with your understanding of things?
Very consistent. And I have a full orientation we're going to do right now that will cover all of that in greater detail. And
Cool.
you'll get all those slides and be able to reference them. So,
All right, great. So I turn it over to you, Bryce. Thank you again for being on the journey with us.
yeah, happy to be here. Yeah, my main goal today is to provide you a full orientation to the Leadership Circle profile. And part that orientation is pretty thorough. And so I'll leave room for questions and whatnot. And then as Steve said, there's a couple items that we need to make a decision about together. So we know how to form this timeline, sort of firm it up a little bit. Any questions for me before we get rolling into the orientation? Okay. I'm going to share my screen, this PowerPoint. Sometimes with this particular PowerPoint on Zoom, as I'm going through the slide deck, it doesn't change for you. Like the slides are moving on my end, but they're not on yours. So if that happens, someone say something, or else it will be very boring for you. You'll just be looking at.
All right. So Bryce, I can give you a real gift. You
Okay.
ready? It's
Sure.
a little technical gift. When you click on share screen, go ahead and click on it. Don't click share screen. Don't do that yet. Click on the button to share. So stop sharing.
Okay.
Okay. Click on the little caret. No, not the caret. I guess not the caret. It's just click on share screen, right? Yeah. Then when you click on share screen, you see where it says advanced at the top there?
Yes.
See advanced?
Yep.
Click on advanced. Then click on portion of screen. Click share sound if you're going to show video at all. If not, don't worry about it. When you click share, it's going to give you an orange box on your screen. shrink it and size it to the portion of the screen you want it to focus on. And no matter what you do, switch tabs, whatever, whatever's in that box will show up. So it'll always show and it'll transfer forward and stuff like that.
Okay.
And what's nice about it is particularly when you're using multiple tabs.
Okay. So folks can see that. Okay, great. Well, good. Let's roll. I normally do a check-in to start these. Often these are in person, and so I'm sitting in the room with folks and I can split them up. I'm going to skip that for now, but I'll say I hope you're feeling well. And I'll tell you my intention for this process is for you to have a deeper understanding of the 360 itself as a tool, but then also that you're really well informed for how to engage this for yourself. So that's the plan. Our job today, like I just said, is for you to better understand the leadership circle profile, prepare you for the survey process so you know the drill there, know the timeline, and to be able to ask questions. So that's my goal. So this is what the leadership circle looks like. If you haven't seen it yet, I'll go through it in a little more detail in a second. But the essential function of this tool is to be able to measure key leadership competencies, which is not like mind-blowing, right? There's a lot of tools out there that measure key leadership competencies. What this one does is it does it in a way where it's also assessing the belief systems or core like life assumptions that may be lying under those competencies. So not just what you maybe have a strength in or where there's a gap or a problem or something that needs further developed, but also why that may be the case, what's going on beneath the surface. And the way that this assessment is designed, I found that those beliefs and assumptions are often pretty accurate for people. They may need to be reworded a little bit, but they largely land strongly for folks who engage the 360. It also points to adult stage development. So we know a lot about childhood development, particularly boys, male children, but we have less sort of longevity in terms of our study of adult stage development. Not that we don't have any, there's quite a bit out there, but what this does is takes a model out of Robert Keegan's school of thought. Robert Keegan's at Harvard, and lays the 360 on as two stages in that adult developmental cycle. And so it not only is measuring key competencies, but it's also showing developmentally where you're at, which I think is super helpful, actually. And it suggests movement from one stage to another to actually mature or further develop as an individual and as a leader. It's an integrated framework, which just means there's many perspectives woven into one assessment. At one time, it was the only integrated framework in the world. And so it was one of the first to do that. And there's so much, I mean, I'm not going to give you the list. You'll have access to a list of many of the points, but there's Jungian stuff in here. There's, I mean, all kinds of stuff, Enneagram, woven into one tool. The reason I chose this tool when I was looking for what I wanted to be certified in is this last point, is it organizes all the results in a way where you, without a coach, it's helpful to have a coach, but without one, you can navigate where the growth points are. So if you score high in one area, the 360 is designed to point to where the developmental areas are at. So it's not only showing you where there's maybe an issue or where there's a strength, it's also going to point to what you can do with that strength or how you can lessen the issue. And it's all right in one graphic, one framework. And I love that. So often they just tell us what we're really good at, or where there's maybe a gap or something, but there's no clear pathway to how to improve that. And the 360 will provide that. Okay, so there's the whole, I did my share thing and now my box is, you can't see the whole thing.
You can make your box bigger. You just pick on the corner and you just slide the box lower or higher.
Yeah, getting there.
There you go. Okay.
You can see most of it now, huh?
Yep.
So the 360, if you just look at the inner circle here, can you see my cursor?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The bottom half of the 360 is measuring what we call the reactive. And the reactive are behaviors and thought patterns or structures that we've developed over the course of our life, most commonly in childhood, that help us address things that are maybe feel threatening to us or scary, things that feel cause uncertainty or discord within ourselves. And each one of us has what sort of programmed ways that we learned are most helpful to us when we're feeling certain types of fear or uncertainty or whatever. What the reactive is saying is if we took sort of our safety manual for life, how we navigate fear, safety, and whatever threat in the world, there would be three common themes to how we feel better, how we feel safer, how we feel more at ease. And those three themes would be to comply, to protect, and to control. Comply is more of a attachment response, tribe. I feel safer when people like me. I know I have secure attachments. I feel like I belong. People want me. I'm liked. Okay. That and again, we'll go into way more about this once you actually have your results. And but that section of the 360 is broken down then into these further areas, which are conservative, which means, in this case, means more rule following, people pleasing, belonging, and passive. Okay, so this is an aggregate score of these 4 items. Does that make sense? Just some nods would be helpful. Okay, good. So this is the attach area, complying. Over here is control, very different. Control is a fight response. It says, I feel safer, better, less threatened, more at ease when I can get something done. I can control the situation. Okay. I may become more domineering. I may have a fight response turned inward, which can be really self-critical, sort of intense language towards myself. And the control area is made up of these 4 dimensions, which is to perfect, to be highly driven, or like overly driven, overly ambitious, and overly autocratic. And what we mean by autocratic is like if there's a ball involved in this game, I want the ball. Give me the ball. I want it. So if there's a task to be done, if there's a project, if there's a deadline, you want your hands on it. Autocratic. Okay. So that's the control or fight dimension. And then protect here is the flight response. It's saying not that I protect others, but there's a core, more vulnerable part of myself. And I always keep a buffer between that and the rest of the world. I'm protecting my core self, my whole self even. And the way the protector keeps that space, that buffer between that part of themselves and everyone else is through actual distance. Like I move away. I maybe am to myself. I'm more quiet. I don't speak up in meetings. I kind of stay in my own lane. I like a silo. I worked with an engineering firm and their protecting scores were really, engineers are commonly protectors. And I was walking through the assessments, and some of the feedback I was getting is that it was a really siloed culture. Like the environment was, people sort of stayed in their own lane and didn't really talk to each other. And because of that, they were missing a lot of opportunities and just confusion, a lot of poor communication. And I laid this out for them, and they said, I don't really see what the problem is. Like that was their framework. Like, this sounds good to me. Like, this sounds like a dream work environment. I don't have to talk to anybody. So I was like, okay, well, we'll start somewhere else then. So there's this actual distance, and siloed is a common theme here. But there's also these elements of being critical and arrogant. And what that means is that the protecting dimension, in order to keep that space between my core self and the world, I will show up into the world when I know I'm right, when I know I have data to back me up. And so because of that, the protector, or the protecting area of ourselves, is very, very critical. It is constantly navigating what the bigger picture is, or what the end result will be, in a way that isn't so much healthy as it is like out of self-preservation. Like, I need to be ahead of everybody else in case something goes wrong, or I get called out in a meeting or something like that. Okay. So there's a critical, and then my experience with these folks, if this is a strong area for any one of you, is that you appear arrogant because you always seem to know the answers. That's when we hear from you, you already know you're right. But that in reality, they're not arrogant people. Like, the arrogance is not actually terribly strong in their life and personality. It's just how they're perceived at work, because that's how they're showing up. So arrogance is also scored here. So that's the bottom half of the 360. Just a quick view. An even shorter view is there's too much up here for me to spend this much time on all of it, but the move here is to go from reactive, these are our fear responses, to move developmentally to what we call the creative, which is the top half of the 360. The bottom half of the 360 is rooted in a sense of fear, safety, belonging, control, right? The top half of the 360 is rooted in a sense of like deeper meaning making. I often will say this is the bottom half of the 360 is like the watchdog, constantly on the lookout, ready to protect. And the top half of the 360 is like a watchtower. It's looking out forward, trying to make meaning and purpose in life. So the most heavily scored item on the whole 360 will be authenticity, which is broken down into integrity and courage. Okay. And then going around here just briefly is self-awareness, relating, systems awareness, and achievement. Okay. And these are all, again, not so much rooted in a sense of fear and safety, but rooted in something sort of beyond fear and safety, more aligned with our sense of meaning and purpose. Okay. And again, each competency here broken down further into different dimensions, right? Is that making sense for folks? I want to tell you how it's scored here a little bit in a second, but just the overall framework. That is a Cliff Notes version, I would say. So we will get into it much deeper when we meet, but
How do you determine, Bryce, how do you determine, again, it's probably all in who you select, but if your environment accentuates like some of these over the other?
What do you mean by accentuates?
For example, I'm in a turnaround, situation. So, we don't have the luxury of, tell me what you'd like to be doing in 3 years from now. It's like, tell me what's happening 3 minutes, 3 minutes from now, so we can make sure that we're on the path to get the cash flow where it needs to be, et cetera, et cetera. So like those are like two very dramatic, and I'm using an extreme case here, it's like two dramatically different environments, but you know, like an established business where, you know, there's maybe the luxury of a little more time and the luxury of error versus a, you know, a startup or a turnaround.
Yep. So the survey is going to ask questions about you, right? And so anyone who's working in that environment with you is going to answer their experience of you in that space. And so I'm going to talk to you about how you categorize your evaluators. And I think that will be helpful to say, wow, okay, so the people who know me in that space while I'm at work in this turnaround culture, they have scored me off the charts in arrogance, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And then my other categories, my scores are very low there. So something happens to me when I'm in turnaround culture where I get really arrogant. That's where you can start to play around with that and say, is that a gift, a strength, or is that hindering me? Am I comfortable with how high those scores? Does that make sense?
Makes great sense.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So what will happen is you are going to take a self-survey. It's 120 questions, might be 125 questions now. They've added a few. And again, this will all be on a slide and ahead. And then you will ask 8 to 20 people. You can do more if you'd like, but 8 to 20 is sort of a good margin to complete that same survey about you, with the addition of 3 questions at the end that will be more fill in the blank, sort of their opportunity to provide wider feedback. Okay. Those scores are then, this is like the graphic that those scores get spread onto. And the dark bars, okay, are where this individual scored themselves on their self-survey. And the orange shaded in area is the collective scores of everyone they asked to complete the survey for them. Okay. You'll also then get a report that goes into great detail based on each area and breaking it down into different categories of how you placed people. But the graphic will be sort of the aggregate, the collective scores. So just, you know, first blush here, I'm wondering what people notice if you know that this is, you know, their self and this is others. Anything you're noticing about this particular individual we're looking at on this 360?
Well, I have to tell you, this would be a tough one
Tough.
because they really think they're authentic and they really think that they have high integrity, but they're perceived differently. And
Yeah.
that's a tough one.
This one stings here, right?
Yeah.
They scored themselves at over an 80% in integrity, and others collectively scored them at about a 20%. And so like a rubber band, the wider that gap between where I see myself and where others see me, the more tense that rubber band gets, the more tension present. So that's a tough one. Okay. But we start to look at why that might be, my eyes go right into this controlling dimension. It's the most lit up. It's the language I like to use. Certainly not off, you know, there's some stuff going on in protecting, but control, something's going on there. So if I were to ask this person, what do you think is at risk for your controlling behavior at work? Well, often controllers will say not much. Like, I'm doing really well. Look at my achievement scores and my results are off the charts. I'm doing great here. But the conversation would need to shift into, well, it looks like your people perceiving you as someone who has integrity is what's at risk here. And how does that affect you? Right. My big assumption would be that this person does have integrity, but people aren't being able to see that because who they meet day in and day out is this guy. Control. Does that make sense? So that's how we will start to use the 360 to have bigger conversations about who you are and who you want to be as a leader. Any other observations people are making just from a first glance?
Bryce, is it true that if you're heavy in one area, then the opposite side of the circle will be lighter?
It's a generally true. It's not foolproof.
Okay,
But if you score high in controlling, for example, it's very likely that you're like caring connection, fosters team play, collaborator scores aren't going to be terribly high.
right.
And that makes sense, right? If you are highly compliant, big people pleaser, you're probably not terribly decisive. And the example I often use is asking your spouse where they want to go to dinner, right? And you guys go back and forth for 20 minutes about where you want to go, right? That's the people pleaser is often not decisive. Okay. I used to score very high in complying. I'm more in protecting now. But in that complying, I got feedback on my first 360 that said, quit forming damn committees and make a decision. And so I was like, oh, that's it. Like I would have to form a group to help me make decisions so that it wasn't just on me. And you know what I mean? Everybody got a say and everything. And so it helped me strengthen this area of my own 360. Any other things coming up for folks before I keep moving?
Bryce, I had a quick question. Is there an ideal format or look to this? I mean, I assume that it's different for everyone, or is it always going to be something that's a work in progress at that point in time?
Yeah. So what we have are everybody who's ever taken a 360 or received one is placed into a database. And so all your scores will be normed compared to that group. And so that's always going on. And you'll be able to see that in your report. And I'll walk you through that in detail when we meet. But then we're able to take that norm group and look at top 10% of business performance and bottom 10%. And so I will show you in that workshop that we do together what those 360s look like. But like you're saying, there's no perfect ideal here. Like the goal is not to get them perfectly lined up or something like that. But I can show you what the top 10% will look like and what the bottom 10%. And that helps you sort of say, gives you a ballpark of maybe what you want to shoot for personally. Okay. Does that answer you? Yeah, good. There's also no bad scores. That's what I like about this too. Like I was very compliant, but I worked in an environment that really rewarded that. And so I, adapted and kept doing that. Oh, so it's not necessarily that means I was bad. It just means I needed some greater awareness around that in my life so that I could address it and do and operate more out of a place of authenticity. Okay.
Probably the only thing that is bad is if there's a big gap between what you think of yourself versus what other people, because then you're blind.
It can be. It can mean you're blind in that area. It can also be just a beautiful gift. Like, wow, I had no idea. I've been feeling unbalanced, right? I've been feeling like I just feel like I work all the time. And what I didn't know is everybody sees that too, or nobody sees that, right? That's helpful awareness to start to lean into maybe what you want, like deeply want. Okay. It's not necessarily bad, but some of them can sting. I'll tell you that. I've had a few stinger. I had one person write on mine. It's for all this feedback, right? And normally it's like a paragraph and it was one sentence and it said, Bryce is arrogant. And I will never forget it. It just stung like like a something, I don't know, but it hurt. And I've carried it with me. I'm telling you about it now. I'm clearly over it and everything's fine, but so sometimes you'll get a comment or a score that does sting. And other times there's really life-giving things you've been working on and you get great results on it, and it can be really rewarding and affirming. And there's room for all of that. Okay. Let me keep going, and then we'll have some more room for questions. So there's a bunch of information, okay? The 360 should take approximately 25 minutes to 30 minutes, depending on, who you are as a person and how you take surveys. Be one self-survey, like I said, and then you'll input 8 to 20 evaluators. These will be your categories: boss is boss, boss, direct report, peer, and other. The language here, these category names are not changeable. I can't change them, but you can use them however you want. So if you don't have any direct reports, you can put other people in there that have some commonality, but I can't change that title of direct report. So if you use them differently, it's really important that you remember and keep track of who you put in which category. Okay. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. For these three, direct report, peer, and other, if there are 3 or more, they will show you the data. Okay. If there are 2 or less, 1 or 2 people, they will not. And that is to protect the anonymity of these people. So if you have 1 direct report, for them to be able to be really honest on this, they protect them. So there's no consequence for them saying something to their, boss. That's maybe critical feedback. Okay. For boss and boss's boss, it will show you no matter how many you put in, because it doesn't usually go the other way. Does that make sense for folks? People get tripped up on that one sometimes. There's a chat coming through here. Steve, I can't read that right now. Can you look at it?
That was from me to you. I'm happy to follow up.
Oh, great.
Doesn't need to
Okay,
be
you asked me a question.
Public comment. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so those are the categories and how to use them. You input your own evaluators into the project center. So you're going to get an email from the leadership circle tomorrow. And within that email is a link. Sometimes that link is very user friendly. You just click it and it takes you right in. It's a very easy profile to set up. And for some reason, sometimes people have to like copy and paste it. I don't know why that is the case. I will say the software that the leadership circle uses is imperfect, just like most software has its limits. And I'll walk you through a few common limitations of it so that you're prepared for them, but that is one of them. For whatever reason, that email goes out, and sometimes it's crystal clear, and other times it requires a little more work on your end. So once you've made your profile, you'll be able to connect to your own survey if you want to start that. And then you'll be able to input people's emails and start building your evaluator list. It will save me a big headache if you like triple check that the emails are correct. The software doesn't take lightly to me changing email addresses on my end. It takes like 3 steps. And I'm happy to do it if there's a problem, but if you triple check it, that would just be really helpful on my end. Keep track of how you categorize people. I already said that. I recommend giving anyone you're asking to do this a heads up, a text or an email or something, so that they know it's coming. You can also show them that the email will come from this email address, so that if it's in their spam, or they can clear it from spam or something. That's where it's going to come from. Don't stack the deck. Sometimes people try to only ask those who are going to give them just really bright, positive feedback. This isn't a performance review, you know, there's no consequence here. So I would say ask people who know you well enough to complete this, and don't try to only ask people that are going to give you really glowing reviews. I will say too, I had a guy once have his mom do it for him, and she said, I didn't even read the questions, honey. I just clicked 5 for everything. And sometimes a 5, like this person is arrogant, right? A 5 is strong, like always. And so she just 5'd the whole way through, and we had her redo it. But make sure people read the questions, I guess is what I'm saying. Don't stack the deck. It's all online, not a performance review. Like I said, the whole thing is a Likert scale, 1 to 5. So it's very easy to complete. You just click through the whole thing until the very end. Some questions will not be relevant. So this is a widely used assessment. And the inevitability is there will be a few questions that may just not relate to your industry or to how people know you at work or something like that. That's okay. There's an NA option on purpose. My sort of feedback is if you're clicking NA more than 3 or 4 times, you should probably slow down on it. And there shouldn't be that many, but it's there for you if you need it. And then if you're unsure of an answer, the middle is more neutral than a 1 or a 5. 1 and 5 are the most charged responses. So if you're saying, I know that this applies, I'm just really not sure, a 3 is a safer bet for that area. And like I said, there'll be feedback at the end, 3 questions. And then telling the truth is paramount here. It's completely anonymous and private. Your scores will remain your own. You will only me and you will get them, and it's up to you how you want to share them. So there's no reason for anyone to see your scores besides me. Most people want to share them though. So okay. There's a little bit more on evaluators. I'll just leave this in here for you to have in the slide deck, but it just guides you through how to identify evaluators and then how to maybe think through these categories a little further. The boss's boss category most of the time people don't use it. But if that does apply to you, I mean, it's there for you. You should use it. Okay. But oftentimes people will say, my boss's boss doesn't know me well enough to complete this. I don't work with them. I don't see them. But you can make that judgment. So yeah, here's the steps. Identify who you want to complete this, send them something just to let them know. Do your survey, put in the names, and then I'm sure you might ask each other to complete. Some of you might do that, so complete them for your peers. Here's the timeline. We need to firm this up a little bit, but we're doing the orientation today. I'm going to launch these tomorrow, which does not mean you have to input everyone tomorrow. It's just it'll be open for you to start doing that. Then we'll have 1 month for you to be able to take your surveys and have others complete them. That is negotiable. Okay, that a month is usually 3 to 4 weeks is usually plenty of time. But if you need a little more time on that, that's doable. And then April 4th is when I would come and do a workshop with you in the evening, if that's the route we still want to go. And it's there that you would receive the results. Okay. And then after that workshop, each of you will meet with me for a 1-hour debrief where we dive more specifically into you and your results. Okay. There's a sample email if you need that. Some people like that just to copy and paste something. or cater it to your own needs. They just removed this video. That's on me. I should have taken that out. But there used to be a really cool video that walked you through all of this. So, yeah. Any questions?
Bryce, is this part of the curriculum for Dr. Katie's class, like this next class?
That's a Steve question. Yeah, I know. Or Dr. Katie question.
It's a Steve question. No, it's not. This is a part of the layered on professional development and career acceleration services that we're providing for you all.
Great.
So somebody could opt out if they wanted to not accept the coaching and development that is being offered. So it is your choice to be a part of it. But my hope is that you all will be a part of it, because not only will you get individual support, and I believe it's important to your growth. Our field is founded on use of self, which is self-awareness, situational awareness, and intentional action, which is all about being willing to take and have an annual, I think of it as an annual reflective experience, so either a retreat or something like this. But I always believe that's important to do something annually. Second, is it's important because you are a cohort, and Bryce is going to be working with you all to bring the results to you so you can build a cohort learning plan, and to help you all intentionally create a really healthy cohort learning experience, which you all, to be honest with you, I am so grateful. I've been waiting for you all to show up. Have such a healthy cohort learning experience that you have been building already. It's really nice to be in your presence, to be honest with you. And I feel like we're starting to build a good culture across the whole of the program. You all are really modeling that in many good ways. So my hope is that you all would take it so that you all can build your cohort too.
Yeah, my question was more selfish in that, like I would just like to push it a month for me personally, just because we've got this large event that we're doing, and all the people that I'm going to ask to fill it out are drowning right now. So
You can do that. You can
yeah,
do-
that's
you
all.
can
That's
do
all
that.
it would be. Yeah,
You can do that.
And this is an invaluable experience, so
Yeah.
I'm in all the way on
Yeah,
it.
totally
Yeah.
cool. And I just took the opportunity to kind of continue to reiterate the importance of this and what my intention is for you all.
Great.
Would extending that a couple weeks, like into April or into further into March, is that enough, or is that still not going to work?
We could talk offline. Yeah,
Okay.
about my situation in particular. It's just the
Yeah.
whole. Yeah, that's all.
Oh, good.
I wanted to offer a specific piece that was really important to me, having been somebody who was asked in the past to evaluate somebody in
Me.
this.
That was me.
I-
That's good.
That
I mean,
was
I
that
had
was
you-
for you to share as to how
Yeah,
transparent you wanted
no,
to be with
I
that.
agree. I'm just
Yep.
saying I've gone through it. I've gone through it so that I can be going through the
So,
experience.
for me, the single most frustrating thing that I would want to, and I don't know, Bryce, I guess this is my question, is all the communication coming through the Leadership Circle website, or am I saying, hey, John, I would love if you could review me? Are we intentionally taking that piece out? The reason I'm asking is that my biggest frustration was that I wasn't clear that how many qualitative questions am I answering? So I was like, am I doing 2? Am I doing 17? Like, this is going to take me forever. And then the page would time out on me because I would get a call and it wouldn't autosave. So
Yeah.
I actually wrote not nearly the feedback I wanted to give Steve, because I'm like, I don't remember, that was yesterday, like, and it's not there anymore. And like, I went through my blah, 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 long story, but I don't know if either there could be an awareness, hey, you'll be answering 3 qualitative questions, and please make sure to save just in the prompt so that the reviewer has a little bit more clarity on what that process looks like. I think would be meaningful, and you'd get less half completed, incompleted.
Yep. Yeah, here's a few items about the software itself. Yeah, one is there's only 3 qualitative questions. That's not about software, but there's only 3 of those. They're at the very end.
And maybe it says that somewhere, and I just didn't catch it, but I didn't catch it. I was like done with the third one. I'm like, oh, that was it.
Yeah, right. A few just recommendations regarding the actual software of it. One is don't use your phone. It is not compatible. It doesn't work very well and it gets all jumbled. So you can tell your evaluators that as well. Not compatible on a phone. The second is that it is developed to be able to autosave, but I have had quite a lot of, sorry, not autosave. You can manually save as you're going. But I have had more issues with that than not. And so my recommendation is that when someone is going to sit down and do it, they should clear 30 minutes and do the whole thing at once. And it is, again, it's built to do that differently. It should be able to autosave or to be manually saved. But I've had issues with that where someone thinks they save it and it doesn't, and or they did save it and we lose it. And the reality of that is once it's gone, it's gone. There's nothing I can do to help you with that. So my recommendation is if it's possible, just sit down and do the whole thing. I also think that makes for a stronger survey engagement, stronger survey results is for you to sit down and be in that space for a little while. So there's a few items. The other is there's inevitable, it's all digital, right? So the inevitability of someone having an issue, the probability, I should say, there's always at least one, few people who have issues with it. The leadership circle has a great and really responsive IT department. I'm going to guide you to direct all of that to me. And if I can't figure it out, I will get them in touch with leadership circle. But I'm happy to navigate any problems people have. And if that's you, no sweat, we'll figure it out. Someone had a hand up. I don't know.
Yeah, Bryce, that was me. I guess there's a few of us in the cohort as I look around who's on the call right now. For example, I don't have anybody that I work with other than my family who's relatively biased. And how would you suggest, even as I look to, Jennifer, she's kind of in a similar situation where, she's in business with her husband, or Melissa's in a new role, so I'm looking at peer groups. Is this something that's intended to do for our cohort, Dr. Katie, or in the professional environment, or is it really just up to us?
I would leave it to Bryce to answer what he thinks is best.
Mhm.
I think either way personally, but I think it's really up to Bryce, what Bryce thinks best.
Yep. What's most important is that we get a good view of people who are able to accurately do this for you. So if that means you have two peers or one peer, that's fine if that's your situation. But we need eight to 20 folks, so maybe that means you have quite a few others, like people that you've worked with in the past, or people that just know you well enough to do it. Okay. So it doesn't, if you don't have direct reports, then that's it. You don't have them. You're not going to have anyone in that category. But my sense is there's probably 8 people in your life at least that could do this type of thing for you. It just might not be the typical, you're not on a team, working with that many people or something. And I think you should feel welcome to ask each other to do it if you know each other well enough. You've spent some time together, so maybe.
And have you seen any correlation in the divorce rate in those situations?
No, I haven't tracked that. But that's interesting. This thing saves marriages. How's that? That's more positive, I think. If any element of this is problematic for you, like you don't know about language and what do they mean by boss and what do they mean by this, just feel free. I'm super approachable. Don't hesitate to be in touch with me. I'm happy to walk through it with you to any degree. So don't hesitate. I'm in your corner and I want this to go really well for you. So
That was
and-
actually my comment in the chat, Bryce, when you were asking. Somebody just posted a chat. Is the etymology of the word boss is problematic at best. So that's maybe a recommendation to Leadership Circle to review if that's really the term they want to use to represent the value set that I know is behind this. 'Cause it's
yeah,
basically Afrikaans and Dutch for slave driver. So when people call me boss, I tell them, please don't call me that. It's not
don't
what I
call
am.
me boss. Yeah. There's a few languages, like the word conservative is used, and I think especially in different cultures and in our
Yeah.
own, that means something very different than what
Yeah.
they're hearing. And yeah, so there's some language issues with the 360. I will make sure I tell, or you can tell them, but I'll reiterate that boss could be reworked to say more what I think they're intending it to.
I think supervisor is probably a less controversial term, for example.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, there's probably several less controversial terms. Yeah, that's
So if I work as a management consultant and I'm serving clients, that client could in a way be a boss because I'm constantly working with them and I'm actually leading them. So it's a weird relationship. So I don't know if you have any advice from a consulting perspective.
yeah, I do.
For
I'm
people
a
in different-
consultant, right?
Okay.
So I have asked clients who I feel it's appropriate to complete mine.
Mhm.
And there are some that aren't, right? I mean, I'm sure that's the case for you, but
Yeah.
there's clients I've had a long time and I do one of these every 2 years for myself just to stay fresh with it. And they love doing it. And they've engaged it themselves, so they've used the tool. And so I find no problem with that, but there are others I would never ask, right? So it's your judgment on that.
Yeah, it's just where to categorize it is the
Yeah.
issue. I'm sure I can get some of my clients to do it. So
Yeah, and you could put all your clients in other,
okay.
or put all your clients in direct report if if you're working solo, right? Like you don't have to,
Mm,
maybe you're not going to use direct reports then, so you can put all
Mhm.
your clients there, but just remember where you put them. That's
yeah, got it.
great. Well,
Bryce, thank you so much for your time.
yeah,
I'm gonna
ready.
pull a Frank and gotta hop.
Yep.
Thanks
no
all.
problem.
Yeah, so one of the things I'm gonna send a note because I'm gonna want to try to meet with you all, a small group of you or something to talk about the design for the next class. So we